Hey
everyone, welcome to the Free Assange Vigil. This is week 77. We are just a few short days shy of our 18-month anniversary vigil, which is just absolutely insane to me that we've been doing this 18 months in a row. My name is Steve Boykin, and I am joined by Misty Winston and eventually Kendra Christian and Andrew Smith. We are very excited to have back on the vigil today both Tareq Haddad and Gordon Dimmack, and I can't wait to talk to those gentlemen, but we need to run through the numbers before we get started. So let's go ahead and do that now. Today marks 3,668 days of illegal and arbitrary detention for Julian Assange. 623 days since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy after being sold to the United Kingdom for a $4.2 billion IMF loan. 9 days remain until District Judge Vanessa Bareitzer, concierge to the U.S. State Department, reads her decision in Julian's extraordinary rendition hearing. Will take place the morning of January 4th. Action for Assange will be in Washington, D.C., holding events around this on the 3rd and 4th. Please go to actionforassange.com for full schedule and details. And if you're anywhere near the Washington, D.C. area, please come down and see us. If you're over in the U.K., get down to the Old Bailey because they'll be out in front of there as well. 1,292 days of federal incarceration for reality winners. He is the longest punished whistleblower in American history. On the positive side, we've got 279 days of freedom for Chelsea Manning, who's streaming on Twitch at least 4 times a week. Make sure that you're checking her out, saying hi, and sending some love if you're on Twitch. She's there like Thursday through Sunday. Today marks 39 days in a halfway house for Jeremy Hammond, and we are incredibly happy that Jeremy Hammond is no longer in prison, and hope that his time in a halfway house is short. Other than that, let's get right into it. What's going on, Misty?
Whole lot of nothing. Christmas hangover, trying to, get my house reorganized and, get wrapping paper thrown away and all that shit.
It still looks like Christmas threw up in my living room.
Yes. Same here. Yeah. We got a shit ton of snow here too on Christmas Eve. So, trying to shovel all of that out. We got seriously probably about 5 or 6 inches.
The whitest thing about my Christmas was my 14-year-old son listening to shitty hip hop.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'll send you some snow.
Tareq Haddad, my goodness, it's good to see you. How are you doing, sir?
Very good. And yourself?
I'm hanging in there. Actually, so I've been bragging about this all morning, but I'm wearing the fuzziest freaking pants imaginable, and I love them, and I'm never taking them off ever. Oh. I will bathe in these freaking pants. Watch it.
Oh, David Cross it, dude. Come on.
Video or it didn't happen.
I mean, you're going to be there.
Oh, okay.
Not for the bath necessarily, but at the Airbnb in Washington, D.C. I'm not taking these fucks off. They're too comfy.
Fair enough, man. They'll keep you warm in D.C.
I got my cold weather training in a couple of weeks ago. It was frigid in Colorado. Of course, it was 62 degrees before I left in Colorado.
It's 62 now, almost.
Yeah.
Kendra!
Thanks. Really stoked to hear that, Kendra. Really stoked. Gordon, my friend.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Hey,
Merry
Do you
Christmas.
still say that in America, Merry Christmas, or do liberals burst into flames when somebody says that?
Yeah, it causes an instant triggering, which is one of the reasons that I have started saying Merry Christmas again, just to piss off the NPR liberals.
Yes, many Karens will ask to speak to managers if you say it.
Yeah,
definitely.
And what if I don't want you to have a happy holidays, Karen?
Right?
I mean,
exactly.
You know, there's that. This is the well thought out and scripted programming that you've all come to enjoy and expect from the Free Assange Vigil.
It's still endlessly amusing to me that people think that we're scripted.
Can you imagine?
Who thinks that?
All you have to do is watch like 45 seconds of the show to see that that's ridiculous.
I mean, but okay, let's be honest, dude. If we were polished and professional, we would hate ourselves.
Yes.
And nobody would watch, or the only people that would watch would be the people who watch things for confirmation of their biases, and that's not why I do this. I don't know about the rest.
Well, and then we would probably just be called grifters or something, you know.
Rightfully
Whatever
so.
it is. Right. Yeah.
Well, since
It's
words
right
don't
here,
have any.
this is not scripted at all.
I have not been given a script by Steve.
Yes. That's right.
Oh, dude, he's ratting us out. What?
Okay, if you'll turn to page 17, we need to pick up from there.
That's the bit where
17.
Just got ratted out live on camera.
Let's get right into this, though, man, because there's 9 days left until Baratzer's reading of the decision. Tareq, you have been one of the more like reserved in your opinion on how this is going to play out. You've taken more of a long view of this, which I have always appreciated and respected. And I would very much like to hear your thoughts as to how you think this is going to play out. And Gordon, please chime in as well, because I mean, I assume both of you are going to be on the ground for this, or at least like have at least one, if not both of you, have access to the cloud video feed for this hearing. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts as to how this may play out.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of been no secret that I've been, I mean, not kind of having a different view to people, but just trying to be a little bit more, I guess, nuanced. I mean, I understand the sort of, and I kind of share that perspective with everyone, that the history of this case has been so, filled with different kind of abuses and different corruption, so forth. And I kind of understand the sentiment of why people say it's a show trial and it's, these charges are, concocted, all that sort of thing. And I understand that sentiment, but it's just kind of, it's very, when you're sort of in the court and you're seeing the lawyers go back and forth and all the different sort of nuance that goes into it, it's kind of hard for me to sort of factually say that it's a sort of foregone conclusion. And, I've mentioned before, there's been instances where, Baraitz has shown that she can be fair, and there's been things that have gone in Julian Assange's favor in the 4 weeks. It wasn't, I think sometimes the parts where she told Assange to kind of be quiet or things like that kind of grabbed everyone's attention. I mean, just to speak about that particular example, he spoke out, I think, 2 more times after that. After the first one where, he kind of threatened to throw him out of his own court proceedings if he interrupted again. But the second 2 times he interrupted the court proceedings, she actually it was welcome into the court, for lack of a better word, in terms of he made a correction to one of the prosecutors, Eric Lewis QC, and the kind of what happened in the court afterwards was, he was essentially said, okay, thanks for making that correction. And then I believe the other time was to do with Khaled El-Masri's evidence, which, he made a kind of very powerful statement that, this man's evidence should not be sort of scrubbed from the record. And, after that moment, it was sort of, actually, I can't remember Baratz's exact wording, but she said something along the lines of fair enough, and his evidence was, even though not in the form that people would have liked to have seen it. It did eventually make it into the court record. And I mean, obviously there's still a lot of the decision from, the perspective that I've taken throughout is that I'm a journalist there to observe, and it's not my guess to judge what's going to happen in the future. Okay, I'm just going to sort of observe what's happening in the past and try and document everything I can. And if the decision is to extradite to the US, I'll be, just as angry and pissed off as everyone else. But I think for me, it's more of a position of, okay, these are the facts that I have right now. I observed the court proceedings in terms of kind of a legal court procedure. There was nothing sort of technically like out of place or something shady going on. All the evidence or most of the evidence that the defense wanted to bring was presented. All the arguments were made. Now it's just about the actual decision at the end of the day. I understand why that can kind of rub people the wrong way.
I have one question for you that I was going to ask, and I don't know if you know the answer or not, but within the court proceedings, I know one thing that's definitely contributed to that is just the situation at Belmarsh, and that there seems to constantly be this type of thing going on. And I wasn't sure, if to either of our guests, if you guys, is that, it's obviously an uncommon situation, but I've just never heard of, the judge saying, well, I absolutely can't do anything here. Is that normal, or?
You mean in terms of?
Just in the sense that she's saying that it's not like within her power to do anything as far as Julian Assange being able to see his lawyers in Belmarsh, that's like all up to, the prison authorities, and that she can't possibly do anything about that. But then at the same time, that affects his ability to have a fair trial. And I'm wondering, I just don't know if that's common.
My feeling, Tareq, you're like Switzerland. You're so diplomatic.
Yes.
They dragged him out of his asylum in an act of fascism. They threw him in the court. They convicted him within 15 minutes. They threw him in Belmarsh prison. That's our version of Guantanamo Bay. He's in solitary confinement for 22 hours a day. That's psychological torture he's going through. That's not my words. That's Nils Meltzer. How anybody can look at this farce and say, oh, it's fair and balanced is beyond me. This is an obvious show trial. He's never going to get a fair trial, as we have seen. It's preposterous to think that anything that has happened with Julian Assange in the last 10 years has anything to do with justice, has anything to do with what's right and what's moral and what's true, and has anything really that can show the United Kingdom court system as being anything but an absolute, just a pathetic excuse for a judicial system that pretty much is under the thumb by the seams and takes its orders from across the Atlantic to where you guys are. So with regards to what's going to happen, I haven't got a clue, but everything so far has been an absolute travesty of justice, and this is disgusting what is happening. And I can't look at anything to be. I was there. I wasn't there the whole time. Tareq was there, but I was there just one afternoon. And from what I saw, it was just being played out. The fix is in, I think, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And whatever happens, we'll keep fighting and, off to the Supreme Court if need be. I just don't see how anything in this 10-year period can be called justice. That's my
Well, I think that
opinion.
it's just based on the fact that he is being held on remand after already serving his 50-week sentence for jumping bail. And,
they wouldn't even give him his glasses, Misty, when he went away. They wouldn't even supply him with his glasses.
They glued the fucking keys
Yeah.
down on the
his
keyboard
laptop.
they gave him.
Yes, and that
They
was
glued
after what
the
was it?
keys
How long did it take for him to even get that?
It took over a year to get that. This is after a 6-month separation from being able to meet with his attorneys. Just the treatment that he's got as a remand prisoner. The excuse that, well, we can't let him out because we haven't charged him with anything.
Yeah.
Why? How are we going to let him out if we haven't charged him with anything? I mean, clearly we must keep this person in a COVID-infested high-security prison for the crime of being a journalist and publisher, because otherwise other journalists and publishers might want to do journalism and publish things. We can't have that.
Yeah, and I think that that's really been laid out really quite bare, and how COVID has played out. They're now transferring all of the COVID patients to where he is, and they aren't giving him his warm clothes. He has to use books to insulate his window. Again, he's in solitary confinement for 22, 23 hours a day. He's unable to participate in his own defense. I mean, there's just so much bullshit surrounding this case,
and that we haven't even hit what UC Global did in terms of Julian and his legal team's ability to successfully mount and prepare a defense.
Exactly.
That alone should have the case thrown out. That alone should have the case.
That alone. He is, all of his conversations with lawyers, doctors. I mean, this is all really set. I mean, they were pretty much live streaming it through the UC Global, through to their friends in America, as that guy said. It's, there's nothing about this that is justice. Nothing. Because if we had a justice system in this country, he would be free, and the war criminals, they would be in Belmarsh and talking about going to supermax prisons and held under SAMs over in America. The war criminals would. But not a publisher who's published factual information 100% of the time. There's nothing about this trial that is justice. Nothing. This is a giant black stain on the United Kingdom justice system, is what it is. And I don't see anybody can look at this in any other way. I really don't.
And it's interesting that, you say that the war criminals should be in jail. And one of those people, one of the, cheerleaders and architects of the Iraq war, is now going to be president of the United States.
Right.
While Julian Assange is languishing in a high security supermax prison in the UK.
Kamala Harris didn't have anything to do with the Iraq war, Misty.
That's fair. That's fair, Steve. You're right. Absolutely. Fair point. Fair point. I'll resend my statement.
Although I'm sure she would have led that bitch like it was her job, But I mean, that's just me making an assumption. I don't know. I've actually never spoken to Kamala Harris because I guess I haven't been arrested in her district, which is the only way that I would ever get an opportunity to speak to her.
So I've just been made aware the witnesses in America, even during the trial, they were woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, weren't they? Yeah, and held. There's nothing about this that is fair. Nothing.
In the case of Daniel Ellsberg, they had to reschedule with him twice because he lives in California. And when court started at 10, that was 2 in the morning here. And I know this because I was awake doing live streaming coverage during it. Because both
4 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning,
crazy. Huh?
Yeah, it was the guy I saw interviewed. He was 4 o'clock in the morning that he was woke up, and everything. I mean, there was obviously it's all lawyer tricks, and they're allowed to do it, but everything you could see that they were, that they wanted to take breaks every 15 minutes, and the guy was like, "Can we just get on with this and do it?" For he was really, and they were. You could see that the lawyers were trying to wind him up and what have you. I know that's a lawyer's trick, but waking him up at 4 o'clock in the morning and the other guy 2 o'clock in the morning, they didn't have to schedule that. They didn't have to do that. They could have done it later in the afternoon instead of first thing in the morning, but they didn't. So you have to ask, well, I don't see anything about it as justice. I really just don't. And we'll see what happens in 9 days' time.
Yeah, and I mean, just to clarify, I mean, I think I agree with everything you guys are saying, and I think probably I've been a bit imprecise in my word. I don't think that
You're too diplomatic, Tareq. That's your problem. Your problem is you're an actual journalist who went to journalist school and did journalism.
Listen,
that's your problem. You need to get out of that habit.
I mean, I'm just trying to be as, I guess,
Mate, we love you. We do, and we really do. Are you going to be in the? Are you going to be in? Have you got the stream? Are you going to be seeing it on the day? Yeah.
Stream, which kind of makes it awkward, because, well, I mean, I'm thankful that I have it, but I was actually planning to be in the courtroom, which is not guaranteed. Which I had the privilege of being there before, like in September. I might try and sort of take a laptop to stream it inside the courtroom, like, you know, inside the building. But I have to decide, because actually getting into the courtroom is not, even getting into the building is not guaranteed. So it's kind of a sort of whether I want to risk either just staying at home doing it from the live stream, but then you obviously miss everyone outside and the ability to speak to all the lawyers and stuff afterwards and things like that. So what I would probably try and do is rent a laptop and go inside the courtroom, but then there's the chance I get rejected and have to run around like crazy to find internet to stream it. But
when will you find out who has been approved to be in the courtroom, as opposed? I know that we have a lot of people who have been approved so far for the video link. What is the process like for getting approved for being in the courtroom in person?
I'm just trying to think of how much of this I should say on the air, because I actually was, I mean, I haven't really been speaking to the court staff about this. I was sort of planning to show up and argue my case that, you know, credentialed members of the press can't actually be turned away from the building. It's up to the court clerks to say that I can't come into the specific courtroom where the proceedings are held for maybe COVID reasons. They'll say, okay, we're only allowed 15 people and you're not allowed to come in the actual courtroom. But legally and technically, I don't think there's anything stopping security staff allowing me in the actual building. So I think that's what I was hoping to do, just so I can, even if I end up watching the stream outside, but it's just the ability to be able to go speak to lawyers. And I think there's probably going to be a lot of uncertainty going on that day. So it would just be nice to kind of grab people quickly, especially as important as I think I am, the lawyers are quite bad at responding to emails, and it's very hard to kind of actually get straight answers out of people unless you're sort of grab them there and there. So it's yeah, I think it would be preferable to be there. And yeah, I think also in terms of all the support that will be there, I'm sure it'll be you know, really good to be there as well.
Yeah, I can imagine it's going to be really loud. I hope it's going to be really loud. I know the people who are going to be there, and they are not going to stop screaming. It's going to be, as Steve said so eloquently the other day. I heard him with, you know, we're going to turn up for a protest and hope for a party. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I mean the UK crew is amazing, and they will be loud. And you know, if you're anywhere near the area, show up, go.
Can I just say for a moment that, like, I just have limitless love for the UK team Assange.
Yes.
I mean, every week, dude, they do my heart right. They do. I love watching that. I love their energy. I love their dedication. I want an action figure of Eric. Like, if somebody can make me an action figure of Eric, dude, I'll build you a fucking house. Like, it's a fair deal. You should take it,
dude.
Does it have to be a good one? Because I'd love a house.
How are you at action figures? We can work something out, lady. We can.
That's funny. Kendra will show up with like Play-Doh. Here's Eric. Build me a house.
Okay, here's a plywood shack.
Oh.
He's a great man. He won't take praise either, you know. He won't take it. I try and tell him how wonderful he is and how loved he is and what have you, and he won't have it. He's like, why all of us? It's not me. It's all of us, and he's you know, he's heroic. He really is. He's a great man.
I think that's so true.
She grabbed him and had him talk to us, which made my entire year. And even then, he was like, "Oh, it's not me. You're just as important, and it's a team." And he's just so cute, and he's so tireless. I mean, 92, and he never misses a protest. Like, that's amazing. I don't have that kind of energy now.
Misty,
know
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I've covered a lot of the protests. I mean, and I've been to quite a few myself, but I'm amazed. He's everywhere. He's everywhere in London. He's at the prison. He's at the Piccadilly. He's outside the Old Bailey. He's outside the Magistrates' Court. He's everywhere. Whenever there's a protest in London, he's there. He's great. He's amazing. And you know, there are a hardcore handful or a dozen or so that are just as dedicated. But you know, everybody tries to get to whatever they can. Yeah, I'm quite privileged, actually. I feel quite privileged to have met so many wonderful people through this. I know it's kind of a terrible way to meet these people, but they are fantastic. They really are.
Well, it's that whole like switch around, you know, like if you want a good leader, it should be somebody who does not want to lead because they know like what a responsibility it is. And that's been, you know, to Eric, it's like, he's like, no, it's not a big deal because he is fighting for something bigger, you know, just like Assange has been from the very get-go with WikiLeaks. You know, it's always so frustrating to me to think like, this is all for us, you know, all of these. And now we have, you know, war criminals pardoned. It's like, oops, Trump, you got switch that around. You know,
yeah, that doesn't bode well for us.
No,
it really doesn't. When the you know, the sign that Trump gives the world in terms of pardons is
Blackwater,
Roger Stone and Blackwater war criminals.
Yeah,
it's sort of like, I don't know, man. I mean, knock the wind out of my sails for a moment, and then I think it was the same day or it was either the day before, when Gordon posted video of the gospel choir outside of Belmarsh prison that turned me into a fucking weeping puddle of tears on my way to back to work, by the way. That was great. I'd done like Jason Burmes's show at 8:00 in the morning, and then I went on Ron Placone's show. It did like this thing popped up as I'm driving to work, and I've got like speakers on in the car. It's coming like right into my brain. I had to pull over and cry like a bitch for 20 minutes. Like, oh, I'm sorry I'm late.
That was incredible.
Broke down like a freaking mental case on the side of the road.
You guys watching, if you haven't seen that, please go find that and watch it. I mean, bring tissues, but go watch it.
I think it's Pixel Helper and the London African Choir.
Beautiful.
There's something there's something inside so strong outside the gates of, or the entrance to Belmarsh, and yeah, it turned myself and my girlfriend into blubbering wrecks within about 90 seconds, and I must have watched that thing about 20 times since. It's incredible.
I hope he could.
You ever just watch it to see if you won't cry?
To answer Kendra, I think you can. I think we have had, you know, whispers that when we you know, people are making a noise that he can hear inside the prison, etc., from people who have been in there, etc. And I know for a fact that if people are screaming outside the Old Bailey, then he's going to be able to hear that, especially if it's on the top. So, but yeah, that was incredible, wasn't it?
That was one of the best things I've seen in a while. I mean, that was one of those things that, you know, you're having one of those days where everything feels hopeless, and then you see that and you're like, oh, okay.
It's amazing. Almost as good as me. Almost, the singing voice is almost as good as mine.
Should we demand that he prove that here and now?
You've got time.
Bit of a can't. Got a bone in my leg.
I better be hearing an aria in the next 10 seconds, Dimmack.
Yeah, I shot myself in the foot there, didn't I?
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't know, man. You're dressed like a 90s record store employee. I would take some Nirvana from you right now. I would.
Yeah, there you go.
You're Cobain.
You're not going to get me to sing, Steve.
Damn
You're not.
Good try, man. Good try.
Guys got it. Try.
I'm not drunk enough yet. Yesterday, no problem.
Bitch, go get Gordon a beer.
Oh, goodness.
I saw her in the chat. I know she's watching.
Who? Who'd you say? Oh,
Gordon's better half.
He says hi.
Hi, Titch. We love you.
Merry Christmas.
She hasn't been dressed before.
Nice. Merry Christmas.
Funny. So, good news though that it looks like Reporters Without Borders got approved for at least the video link, right? Is that accurate? I mean, I know that's not. I know Rebecca Vincent said that yeah, they've been approved, but that could change. They could revoke that for any goddamn reason they please. But I mean, that's at least something. Progress.
Weird though that they grant non-governmental observing bodies access for the reading of the verdict, but not the actual witness testimony.
Right.
I mean, again, I'm going to sound like the knobhead that's trying to go against.
Boo! Be sensible.
But I mean, even in September, they were like, because this is the kind of the position I found myself, where you would see things unfold, and kind of as you would see like the tweets go out and how people would react, how like it would morph, and like if a certain tweet didn't include all the information, it kind of took the narrative down in a certain direction. But so what actually happened in September is apparently the court so there's obviously different lists for the media and for the observers, and for the international observers, whoever was preparing the lists accidentally, or they didn't actually check any of the names that were on the list. So they essentially gave access to anyone who said that they were an observer, and said that they were an observer for an NGO, and that the court staff gave them access. And then Baraitser found out, I think the morning of, that it had just been given to everyone, and it was too late to say, okay, we're going to give these people access. These people are not real NGOs. These people are. So they essentially just had to say, okay, everyone in this particular room had to get revoked. But I think later in the proceedings, the Reporters Without Borders were allowed in. I forget his surname, but a German fellow called Christian something. He was inside the building for most of the hearings, because I think Rebecca was on holiday or something like that. But the guy from RSF, he was.
So the way I understand,
Isn't it a public trial though? Right?
the way I understood it is that somebody else had to give up their seat so that he could go in.
Assange supporters.
And that may not be the case. It may not be. That was at least the way that I had understood it from the way that Rebecca had explained it to me.
I think
They had to start queuing around 6 a.m. and someone had to give up their seat so that someone from Reporters Without Borders could go in and observe.
I think that was the case for like the first week, and then that issue got resolved by week 2 onwards.
The issue got resolved, to the best of my understanding, by the members of the Australian Parliament who had 5 seats reserved for them suddenly finding out halfway through the process that these seats in fact existed, causing them to go, what the fuck, we're nowhere near there, give up those seats.
Hmm.
There were also seats in the public gallery that were reserved for VIPs, weren't there? That never turned up.
I believe that's what I'm talking. I believe that's the thing that I'm talking about.
This was actually.
Oh, is that the same thing? Sorry.
That was in the courtroom, and again that was confusion, because the 3 VIP seats were actually the 3 medical experts for the prosecution, and it's customary in UK courts that the defense, the medical witnesses usually have a seat reserved for them in the courtroom. So those seats that were not being taken up by anyone were actually the ones taken up by the medical experts when they came, but obviously they weren't there until the 3rd week, I believe, or something like that. Obviously there were still some issues with the public gallery in terms of, obviously it was a reduced number because of COVID, and then I think illegally or falsely they told the people in the public gallery that they weren't allowed to take notes, which there's nothing to say that you can't do that. But I was informed that kind of 2 days because it was the same people that were sort of in there, that they were just taking notes anyway, because no one was checking up on that. But even if they were, because one of them was kind of asking me like, am I going to be in legal trouble if I take notes? And I said, absolutely not. There's nothing that prevents you taking notes. I'm even surprised that someone would try and say that to them in the public gallery. But I mean, yeah, that's definitely something that happened. Yeah. So.
But that's where I feel like, you know, with some things we go kind of down a hole that we don't belong in, like in the sense of like, okay, what are the technicalities here? You know, maybe it wasn't the worst thing that they got rid of it, or there's a reason that they took away everybody's privilege to watch it that was an NGO observer. But then it's like, I go back to that point, which is where I said, like, it's supposed to be a public hearing. You know, there should be, why can't I listen to it? You know, why can't, if it has to be online, you know, where is I don't know. It's just, and I understand that's different with it online, but I feel that same way sometimes when we go down the hole of like Assange, hero or villain, when it's like, who cares? That's not the point, you know? So that's frustrating for me with this too, because that's, you know, that's our only way to know what's going on either. And it's difficult. I mean, the live tweeting I know is not the easiest thing for people to do. And it's just, I don't know, I feel incredibly cheated, even though we have, which Tareq, thank you so much for those witness statements. I mean, that's incredible. Yes. But, you know, it's just hard in the public because it's our rights here. And, you know, on technicalities, people can't observe. So what are we left to think?
The single most important freedom trial or hearing in history, maybe. And we can't even observe it or listen in or, you know, bear witness to what's happening. And this affects literally every human being on planet Earth. And we can't even, you know, participate or observe in the process and see what's happening. And that's terrifying in and of itself.
I want to speak to this for a minute because yesterday we had every Friday there's been a tweet storm for Julian Assange starting at I believe 8 p.m. London time.
Yeah.
And yesterday being Christmas, it seemed like there were more trolls out. Mm-hmm. In those posts than there have been in previous weeks. And the dedication of either just bored assholes or paid national security agitators to go like extra deep in the paint on Christmas Day provided, at least on my end, for a wonderful opportunity to like share video links and articles and this here poster and a number of other things that just I don't think like ordinarily would have been irked enough to do so. But I guess my whole point in that, which I sort of lost about 10 seconds into my ramble here, it's been a long fucking week, y'all. It's been a really long week. My whole point though was the number of people that have come together to make the tweet storms happen. Like this is happening at an international level. These are people who understand intimately exactly what's going on with this situation and with Julian's case in general. And if we can figure it out, there's no excuse on the part of the people who are in positions to affect this case in one way or another to, you know, not have access to 100% of the information, which means that the decisions they're making are either being made out of ignorance, out of spite, or under orders.
Under orders, Steve. I was going to...
I was trying to give him an out there, Gordon.
No, listen, let me... the best way to explain this is Piccadilly. Just before Christmas, it was quite busy because of tier 2 they were in. That was a good decision, Boris. Well done. And I spoke to quite a few people that night. You know, probably 20, 30 people myself. And, you know, between the half a dozen or so that we were talking to people passers-by during the protest, we probably spoke to hundreds. It was hundreds of people. And here's what happens. People are like, you know, you say, what are you aware of Julian Assange? And they sort of know who he is, and they sort of, but they're not really sure of what he's done or why, and it's by design, that is, because once people understand what he's done, and once people understand why he's in Belmarsh, and Londoners don't know much about Julian Assange or WikiLeaks or Edward Snowden or anything like that, but they know about prisons and they know about Belmarsh. And when they find out that a journalist is being held in Belmarsh, they are absolutely mortified that it's happening on British soil. And the amount of people that I spoke to that, there was one kid with braces, I remember. He's only about 16, 17, and he kept reading it and he was just looking up. He couldn't believe it was happening, that we'd done this on home soil. I remember saying, that David Mitchell meme that are we the baddies? He's like, yeah, man, yeah. Couldn't understand it. And this is why they're keeping it just so quiet, and they want to, veer the story towards whatever they can to Sweden, to muddy the waters. Because if people know what the truth is, they are absolutely mortified. And I tell you, the amount of people at that I spoke to, that we spoke to that day, who we finished and we said, okay, thanks very much, and they said to us, what can we do? It was incredible, wasn't it? The amount of people that were like, what can we do? Because people want to get involved, because this is an absolute miscarriage of justice. And they understand how important it is. So this is why they're trying to obfuscate and trying to derail the argument and try to derail and put as much crap and as much misinformation in there as possible. So trolls end up on Twitter, end up going out and doing their propaganda for them, unpaid trolls, or as I call them, I don't know, cave hive people or whatever they're called over there now. But yeah, this is why. It's by design for sure. And if you ask me, that's my opinion, I know, but
when you start throwing things at people like, okay, you have an opinion about Julian Assange that you formed based on headlines after 2016.
Yeah.
You can have that opinion. You can keep it or you can dispose of it on your own time. While you're holding on to that opinion, at least examine what the United States is trying to do here. And that is, they're trying to give themselves international jurisdiction over the press. Is that something that you support? Do you support the Department of Justice?
Because Orange Man bad.
And that's the thing. It's his fucking Justice Department. So why are you supporting Donald Trump's Justice Department's claims, if you don't like him, that the U.S. DOJ has international jurisdiction over the press? Why is it necessary for the Department of Justice to claim that receiving or sharing classified information is something that you can be imprisoned under the Espionage Act with? Because that's the claim they're making in this case. Your feelings about what you were told to think about Julian Assange 4 years ago aren't relevant. And I'm sorry.
That's what makes what Gordon said so important. The reason why people don't know about Julian Assange or only vaguely know about what he's done is because the less people know, the easier it is for them to fool people or to manipulate them into thinking a certain way about him. So there is no media coverage of Julian Assange, and when there is, it's very vague and it's very orchestrated towards a certain narrative, and it's subtle, but it's it's 10 years. This is 10 years of constant propaganda, one thing after the other being leveled at this guy. And so nobody has a clear idea of who he really is. They have this caricature made up in their minds. Anybody who even knows about him, I mean, like you said, most people either don't know about him or only vaguely have heard his name, and they may know, oh, he's that guy that released Hillary's emails or whatever. But and what's so critical about this is that whatever you think about 2016 has nothing to do with anything. That's not why he's being prosecuted. Has nothing to do with it. So your whole he's a Russian and he's he is responsible for Trump and all of that bullshit means nothing. It means nothing. It has nothing to do with this case, and that is so often lost.
It's a good point, that is, Misty. And just to follow on from that, I'm going to lose my shit if I see another legacy media blue check mark on Twitter start the first, I don't know, tweet that they've made about Assange in the last decade with whatever you may think of Assange. The reason that people have such differing opinions on Assange, not just as a person, but what he's done, is because of how shit the media and the legacy media have been at explaining to people just what the truth is with regards to this. They start these, whatever you think of Assange, without just skipping over the fact that it's their fault that there's so much misinformation and so much crap out there about Assange. It really drives me nuts. So it's a good point, Misty, and it's just a bugbear of mine. I've had it up to here with the people in the legacy media saying whatever you think of Assange, it's their fault people don't know the truth.
That's fair. That's really fair. It is. And the reason that they do that is because it allows them cover for what they've done. The attacks they've taken part in, the smears they've helped promote. And only when it dawns on them the implications that this really has to press freedom, the implications that it has to investigative journalism going forward, to the First Amendment going forward, to our ability to communicate with each other in terms of activism going forward. When that dawns on someone and they're part of the problem, yeah, they're going to be like, okay, so it doesn't really matter what you heard because my byline's on that. But here's the thing. I could get in trouble for what they're doing to him. So if you like me, then, you know, sort of maybe be mad about this. And that's like as much as they're willing to put out. And you're right, I mean, you have exhibited more patience than I have. I was out of patience a year ago and have been getting in trouble ever since for vocalizing my lack of patience.
I tend to ignore them now. I tend to try and ignore them, Steve. It works for my. It's starting to work. I'm starting to, you know, I don't talk about the individual people that I dislike anymore. It's sort of like if I talk about them, I'm giving them fuel or air or something. So I don't do it now. And I tell you, it's good for your mental health.
Yeah, I mean, we just had Festivus, so it was an airing of grievances, and I got some things off of my chest. But it's a made-up holiday. It's an airing of grievances. There are also feats of strength. You gather around the Festivus pole or the beer can Christmas tree. Huh?
Is it a South Park episode?
No, it was a Steinfeld episode.
Seinfeld.
Oh, right. Okay. I wasn't far off then.
Get our sitcom straight, Gordon. I mean, come on.
Very sorry.
No, I do want to say something, though, about this because I have somewhat of a different opinion. I mean, I do. It also it irks me because we know where that all comes from. That, like, I mean, honestly, that whole like hero or villain, or is he a, you know, beat his cat, or I mean, whatever ridiculous stuff like that is. But like, I'm of the opinion that I don't care why they're supporting Assange. I just want them to support Assange. And if they have to give themselves some sort of like cowardly out to say so, fine, do it, because that's the whole point. Is it honestly really shouldn't matter, because guess what? Even if somebody did rape someone, they still have a right as a journalist to expose war crimes. That's the point. You know, it's not all of this other stuff over here, which we all know isn't true. But I do think, like, just in the sense of that we want to get as many people as possible. And there's part of me too that feels like people are going to be kind of where they're at, you know? I mean, and I don't know why it's necessary to do that, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm sort of with you, Kendra. I'm sort of with you. I'm happy that they're jumping on board and these, but I do, you know, I'm happy, but let's remind them that there's a reason why they preface. That, you know, whether you like Assange or not, or whatever you think of it, there's a reason. Let's remind them of it. Yes. Okay, fine. I'm glad you're on board, but just know it's your fault. And hopefully, because these are spineless people who care all about how they're perceived. Hopefully, if they think, oh, wait a minute, if I'm going to be perceived as somebody who actually led this campaign of hate against him for the last decade, which is basically what the media have done, then hopefully these spineless people are going to start thinking, yeah, I better start being a little bit more vocal in
We're
my
about a
support of
day
Assange.
too late wishing for a Christmas miracle. But I when I do this, I'm going after the audience. I'm not going after the individual. I'm not going after a particular reporter or a particular content creator to specifically attack that person. I'm going at their audience. I want their audience to see what they're digesting,
I get it.
and that there is a reality that genuinely exists that they have ignored in favor of comforting stories from this particular individual. So like I don't. It'd be nice to have them on board. God damn it. But to me, it would be nicer to have the audience push them. Like, yo, dude, why aren't you talking about this?
Yeah.
Why is this missing from your content? This is important to me, your audience member. Why won't you discuss it? And then if you can back a journalist or content creator against the wall to the point of where they're like, it affects my bottom line. I am putting myself at risk by sharing this truth. That's a moment that you want to have happen, because then it creates, like, maybe for some people, the first genuine moment that they've had with them and the person that they go to for information.
Yeah, and I think that's actually really important because there are a lot, like I dealt with this the other day. I brought up in the spirit of what we're talking about, I won't name names, but I had mentioned that somebody hadn't really done any coverage over the Julian Assange case. And one of their fans was like, that's not true. He's done like 3 or 4 videos in the past 2 months. And I'm like, buddy, I just went and scrolled through his YouTube channel and there's one video, over the past 4 months, one. So, I think that these people who watch these content creators or journalists have kind of mind fucked themselves into thinking that these people actually do cover these things. And these are good people. Like of course they would cover Julian Assange. Like that's ridiculous that you would even, say that they're not. And they kind of have this, alternate reality made up in their heads where these people are actually covering the most important court case on press freedom in history. And they're not. And it's really unfortunate. But it's like Steve says, it's like these people go where they can find these, warm, fuzzy blankets of, confirmation bias. And they don't want to look outside of their little bubble or their little box. That's hard. That's uncomfortable. That's scary. I don't know how to deal with that other than exposing those people. And it's cool that they come out and support them. Like Kendra, I totally agree with you. I don't care who supports Julian Assange or why. If you publicly come out and support Julian Assange, I welcome you. But I'm still going to expose your bullshit because I think that is equally as important. And like Steve said, it's not because of those individual people, but it's for their audience. That is the biggest reason why I go so hard on Twitter, because I'm fully aware that the Squad or Bernie Sanders is never going to say anything about Julian Assange. But if somebody sees that on their timeline and then starts to wonder, man, that's weird. Why haven't they said anything? That's a win for me. That's what it's about right there. That is what it's about.
And
Progressive media said they were looking into it, though, Misty.
Right.
Because of Mean Panda. Big shout out to Mean Panda for making Anna Kasparian address Julian Assange. And big shout out to Glory Jones, Slow News Days co-host, for doing the exact same thing to Tim Black.
Yes, that was amazing.
Well, and I feel like too, Misty, to your point, and Steve, like even just through Twitter, you guys have pretty good audiences on there. And I feel like I am seeing that, that is working. Like people are like, wait a minute, I'm just seeing so many more random people coming in and from our tweet streams. And it's like, it is really
People give Twitter activism a lot of shit. And listen, Twitter activism is not the end all be all. That should not be your only method of activism by far. But it is such an important tool. And I'm not kidding you. I don't mean to pat myself on the back here, or maybe I do. But I have gotten a crap ton of DMs and, Twitter responses where people are like, hey, I just want to thank you because I kind of knew about Julian Assange, but I hadn't really been following it. And because of you, I started paying attention.
Mhm.
And when we started going hard at content creators, within 24 hours, 3 different shows did coverage of Julian Assange.
Yeah.
It works. It absolutely works. It is.
While we were getting shit on
Yes.
for saying it.
Yeah.
While
Yeah.
we were getting just shit on for being like, why won't you do the bare minimum thing that maybe a journalist should do? Like, oh my God, dude, we got so much shit for that. And look, I think we've established that Misty and I have the same general reaction to stuff like that, where if you're coming at us, then that just means you're within headbutting distance, and that makes me happy. So keep coming at me because it's fine. I'll have some more fun. But no, dude, the brain to fingers pipeline as it stands has been working out all right. It has. We've been able to get a lot of people on board that were just on the periphery, didn't know about it. We've been able to further activate people. And look, dude, we're positioned right now. In a week, there's going to be a huge Force the Vote event in Washington, D.C. around this, insane idea that politicians should vote on things that are popular programs for people.
Come on, Steve, that's ridiculous. How are you meant to? I'm sorry, you're asking representatives to represent you. Come on.
I know it's weird. It's
You're
not my
asking them
campaign.
to literally do what their job says is to do, to literally represent them.
In the back of their mind, they're like, well, I wasn't even elected. I don't really owe you anything.
That's a bridge too far. But okay, so that's happening at the exact moment that we're in Washington, D.C. for Julian Assange, while a Trump rally is going on too. And we've got friends on, both camps that are going to be coming to see us. So this really is like a unique moment, just simply based on the fact that everybody that's going to DC for whatever reason is going there because they've recognized that their government has failed them, that the systems that they have relied on or have been taught to rely on are built on bullshit and lies. And they've figured out that if you want any kind of substantive change to occur, you've got to get up off your ass and go do something about it. So it truly is magical that we're going to be around so many people that have already figured that out at the same time. And I hope we'll be able to capitalize off of it. And I certainly hope that even though we're prepared for a protest, we'll be having a party.
Yeah, and I think that actually gives us a unique opportunity to bring some of those people from very opposite ends of the spectrum into a cause that maybe they all agree on. That's my favorite thing about the Assange movement is that it is post-partisan and that I don't give a shit if you're left or right or whatever. If you support free speech, free press, and Julian Assange, then we can work together on that. And
I met Misty the last protest. I met a Labour supporter who supporting Assange. Can you believe it? Somebody's still in the Labour Party. I think I found him.
Wow, it's a unicorn. You found a unicorn. Amazing.
They are. They come from all walks of life. They really do. All walks of life and all left, right, centre, whatever, all everywhere on the political spectrum, because they know that this is important.
Well, it affects us all. It doesn't matter what your politics are. I've said this a million times and I'm going to say it again. But if you do not have free press and free speech, it doesn't matter what your favorite cause is, whether it's healthcare or the environment or education, you are not going to be able to effectively advocate for that cause without a free press. It's not possible. This issue is, it directly impacts every other fight that we have. So this isn't about left or right or whatever, your pet cause is. This is about all of us being able to, stand up to our government, hold them accountable, and fight for what we want. That's it.
Tareq, I wanted to ask you. I would be wanting to ask you. What do you think? Obviously you worked at Newsweek. What was Newsweek, wasn't it, Tareq? What do you think that is stopping them, the media, covering this? Because I just think it's like, well, they don't want the truth. Well, obviously journalists are obviously pushing, aren't they, or do they not know? Pushing their editors to put. Do you see what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, again, I think it really depends on publication to publication, and but even in the UK, it seems to be the situation where the press seems to be improving. It obviously doesn't make up for all the bad coverage in the past, but the Guardian's published an editorial, I think a week ago or so, or 2 weeks ago now. But maybe it doesn't do that much, but for me, it's better than not. And even the Daily Mail, which is kind of everyone's most hated newspaper, but it's also got the largest audience in the world. And to be fair to them, their coverage of the actual proceedings was pretty fair and pretty good. And that got the news out to a lot of people, and they did all this stories about the kind of side issues and things. So I think it depends. I can't really give you a reason of why they don't cover it. Obviously,
you can see from my point of view, though. You're pretty much the only journalist in this country that I saw stood up to the lies that are being told. I know it was a different story, but you're pretty much the only journalist that has in this country. I would have expected a mass exodus of people walking out of these Fleet Street places saying no, they won't publish the truth about journalism. I would have expected that, but is a journalist comfortable at these places?
Yeah, it's really hard to give you an answer.
I was just a guy in a council flat. I wasn't a journalist. I was just a guy in a council flat, and I saw how bloody important it was. So for me, as somebody from a council flat, who's pretty much been useless at everything he's ever done, for it to light a fire under my arse, I can't see why it wouldn't for a journalist when his own profession is on the line.
Well, you're talking about being called rather than talking about being employed. And that's a very, very different thing. It is. I have friends that are journalists. Look, man, I've got friends that are, small business owners. I've got friends that work in the tech sector. I've got friends that work for fucking Lockheed Martin. Okay. And we have knockdown, drag out conversations. And I will tell them to their face, you need to quit your job because you're committing war crimes for the health insurance. And I'm fun at parties, guys. I'm really fun at parties. But I'm just based on where I live. There's a fucking Lockheed Martin facility 4 miles up the road. The odds of me running into an employee there are significantly higher than they would be anywhere else, But when I have these conversations, and people are like, "Yo, dude, how do you expect me to know this? I've got my entire fucking life is a shit show right now. I'm buried in work. I've got, COVID's doing this and fucking my kids are doing that and blah, blah, blah. And we're kept occupied by so many different things. And if you allow yourself for a moment to feel like, okay, I can have a favorite TV show and then I can watch everything about that TV show and I could get into, get into this aspect of what Jason Burmis calls celebritard culture, then that's that's being a good American. That's being a good Brit. Obsessing over what celebrities do or the royals do is being a good citizen, and what we are doing is stepping out of the bounds of that. So you've got to make people comfortable with flipping that paradigm before they're going to be willing to even discuss it, at least in my experience. But I'm sure it works differently for people who are less combative than me.
Well,
I
was
think it's
wondering.
a little bit of what Noam Chomsky said too. These journalists who work at these outlets and organizations, they wouldn't have the job that they have if they didn't,
Play
have.
ball.
Yes. And so, it's these people are there for a reason. If you step outside the bounds, you get fired. I mean, we've seen that over and over and over again. We saw Chris Hedges get fired. We saw Jesse Ventura get fired, Ashley Banfield. I mean, there's all these people who, were great journalists and had, great shows and did great work. And the second they stepped outside the lines, they were fired. And that's how it works. So, I mean, these people in legacy media, they're there for a reason. They're there because they are willing to toe the establishment line, protect the status quo, and do as they're told.
They probably killed Ed Schultz.
Right? I mean, I think that's it. That's where it's at. I mean, these are people who, they have their jobs for a reason. And I don't know. I don't necessarily think that it's a conscious thing for each and every one of them. I think that some of them are smart enough to know better. I think Rachel Maddow, I mean, I'll name her name. I think she is definitely smart enough. She is definitely smart enough. She is 100% aware of what a piece of shit she is. There's no question. She knows she's a piece of shit. Chris Hayes, he knows.
That's why you pay your personal shopper to tell you that you look good and that you're a nice person.
Yes.
So you don't have to think about it.
There are some people who absolutely know what they're doing, but I think there are also some people who work in news media who have, done the mental gymnastics to convince themselves that they're doing good work, and they justify things in their heads, and they're just so damn proud of themselves for making it, to the big time, that they they are willing to ignore the reality of what they're doing.
For Tareq's sake, I'm gonna make a clear demarcation between just like someone who's a beat reporter or cub reporter or just there because they work at the fucking sports page, and someone like George Moonbat who is proud of being a narrative manager. There are people who are like, yes, we determine, or we're the ambassadors of what the narrative is. That's what we do. And there's people that are proud of that. I don't think for a moment that, Dave at the lifestyle section is that guy. Right. I don't think he's that journalist, So I do. I think it's important to like note the difference, but also realize that Dave at the lifestyle section probably wants to keep his fucking job, because he's been used to the level of comfort that job has afforded him. And going backwards from that, if you're at all a career-oriented or career-minded individual, it is a step backward at a part in your life where you don't want to be taking steps backward. Like I get that, dude. I do. I've got a ton of fucking empathy for that, as long as you hear what I have to say.
No, but I think, Mr., you're definitely right. And I think a lot of it is even more unsaid. I think people kind of do it almost subconsciously, where you're kind of aware of what the boundaries are. And it's sad because, to be honest, to be completely frank with people, I still find myself doing that. Well, I find myself doing that now, but on different, not on Assange, but on just different issues. But I think it's also kind of to do with the general climate now of it's. I mean, as you've noticed, I'm not the most combative person. That's why I try to be diplomatic with things. But I do feel that, kind of where things are in the last few years is not the same like 10 years ago or so, where it was a lot easier for people to have like ranging opinions, and it wouldn't be such a, you wouldn't excommunicate for certain opinions. Whereas definitely it's a lot more like that now in terms of people losing jobs for particular opinions or on certain positions. I think, part of kind of what we need to try and do is actually how to like give people sort of safe avenues to kind of say things that are unpopular. And I guess that's almost, that is kind of the great thing of what WikiLeaks did, is that, we know throughout history that whistleblowers always face, losing their livelihoods or their lives, or face a great amount of, consequences for the things that they do. And, Julian kind of created this platform that made that more doable without so much of the consequences. And I think, maybe for us or people to think about as general as how to kind of get, even how to make a independent media landscape function, because I don't think even today it's still, I think it's doing great, but I don't think it's doing as well as it could, or it's still difficult to kind of make a living as an independent journalist. It's not something that you kind of say to people like, yeah, this is something I recommend you doing because you're gonna make a lot of money doing it or whatever. It's a hard thing to be doing, and yeah, there's going to be drawbacks to taking unpopular positions. And it's not something that I support, but you can see why people do it. And I guess it's like, how do we make incentives for people to actually like say the right, say the truthful thing, or create the kind of spaces where people can say things without, the negative consequences to them. But
we're also facing an uphill struggle in that independent media has to fight the battles on the fields, on the fields of battle that corporations control. So, the minute you start getting traction on a subject, you're going to get demonetized, or you're going to get a community strike or something like that. Facebook, Google, Twitter, they are going to do this, and we've seen it. We've seen the persecution of left-wing voices, and I'm thinking particularly Palestinian voices, etc. And all these came on the back of them, silencing the canary in the coal mine, Alex Jones. We're having. I think we're going to face a real uphill struggle unless we take control of it ourselves and off other corporate platforms and just try and do something ourselves. How we do that, I don't know, but you certainly can't fight a fair fight as it is. I've seen that with my channel. It was just they switched it off, and they can do that.
Bro.
Well, and it seems to me like before WikiLeaks, it was kind of, it was in a sense like buttoned up, we'd already had manufacturing consent come out, what was going on with the propaganda was known amongst, smaller circles. But I really think that's, WikiLeaks, even for me, was just that like blow into this is what's going on. Like, here's what's really going on. And they can't have that. They're so invested in that going away. And I wonder, to this point about what's going on with the mainstream media, that's the flip, right? That the Assange cases just showed us, like, look, what everybody's saying is going on is not going on. What's going on is we have a journalist in Belmarsh. That's what's going on. And I wonder, is that like our biggest instinct to just belong, And that's what's so hard for people fighting this, like, this tribal sense of belonging. They're so freaked out to step outside. And I realize losing your career is not some small thing, but it's I wonder about that, how we do fight that within these media organizations, because it seems like even when you have somebody decent, they're going to get stopped by an editor, and some people quit, like Tareq, but not everybody. And I think that comes from us too, being the public, being more loud and just saying like, no, we're not listening to this. And I see that happening. I think the censorship has been in some ways great for us, because I feel like they've overplayed their hand a bit.
Yes, tricky.
You got dead air. Somebody say something.
As someone who is constantly like pummeled by this censorship, I'm not gonna say that it's been an overall plus for me.
Well,
but
see my point.
I'll because I like you, I'll agree with you, but only because. No, I mean, yeah, when you can hold up people that have been just ridiculously unnecessarily deplatformed, and that hasn't happened to Slow News Day yet. Although every day that I wake up that I have a YouTube channel, I am fucking amazed. But when you can say like, okay, like Anna Breeze just got her YouTube channel yanked. Anna Breeze is really not that controversial.
No, she's not.
Dedicated journalist, incredibly like fair in her criticisms, and she got her channel yanked because she interviewed a doctor in an anti-lockdown protest.
Mm-hmm.
Like straight up, for interviewing a doctor, they have removed her entire channel and like the 60 or 70,000 people that were subscribed to it. Ryan Christian, Last American Vagabond, had his main channel taken down. Was nice enough to come on Slow News Day the day that it happened so he could rant about it, which is fantastic. But like, I'm tired of being the channel that other content creators go to when they get deplatformed. Like, I would rather be your friend because we're friends, and I would rather not have the role of, okay, now I need to amplify another one of my friends who have been fucked with.
Well, and I think that to me, that's what's more troubling than even just the mainstream media crap, because I expect it from them. They've always been kind of awful. But we're now seeing the same kind of, I guess, chilling effect in independent journalism and independent content creators, where they're self-censoring because, I mean, some of it is because they're afraid to lose clicks and they're afraid to lose Patreons and all of that stuff. But there's also a level of it where they're afraid to lose their channel. They're afraid to get deplatformed. And so they don't want to cover controversial topics because there's that fear that if you step even just the tiniest bit out of the line, then you're going to have your entire channel wiped. And I mean, some of these content creators have been working on their channels and building up their audiences for years. So I get that. But at the same time, we cannot combat that level of censorship by playing into it. We can't continue to, justify our own, self-censorship because we're afraid of them. At some point, we're going to have to be willing to, fight back against it on a real level. I mean, there's no other way. That they already controlled the mainstream media narrative. They have all along. But now that they're starting to dip their tentacles into controlling, the independent, space and really controlling the entire narrative where, no dissenting voices are being allowed at all. That to me is far more terrifying than what's happening in mainstream media. I expect mainstream media to be awful. But when you start to see it happening in independent spaces and you start to see people who should know better doing really terrible self-censorship and, modifying the way that they cover things so that they don't upset a certain amount of people or whatever, that's really troubling to me. And I mean, I just don't think that I get, trying to, watch yourself and be careful so that you don't lose your channel, but that's not, that doesn't address the problem. All that does is play into their hand. And that's, I mean, I don't know how we're supposed to combat that while playing their game.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think what you just said there too, like really hits it on the head about, they don't want to self-censoring to not lose your channel when it's like, well, so then what channel do you have? Is that
Right.
your channel? Like, you know what I mean? Like you've already lost it.
Fantastic.
That's why I'm off. It's
I
why
don't
I'm
know.
off. It's like I know that they are that eventually they're going to take my channel away. I know that they are, and I know why they're going to do it as well. I can see it coming. So yeah, they've done me no favors, I don't think. So bugger them, I'm off. And I think the more, I don't know. I can see a future maybe where there's an actual platform for news, for independent news that's funded by people that isn't based on an advertisement revenue. I can see it. It's coming, and we need it. We really do, because we can't carry on looking to giant corporations like Google and Facebook and Twitter to be the place where we publish our stuff, because eventually they're going to get press ganged into taking it away from us. These people haven't got the spines to stand up to government. They're going to capitulate on it every time. Look at what they've done in the last few years. It's the level of censorship now is getting ridiculous. Look at Anna. I've met Anna. I've interviewed Anna. I've been down to her house and I've spent an afternoon with her.
Tell her to do my show.
She's a lovely person. She probably would do, Steve. I'll email her and let her know. I'll tell her that no, he's not scary.
No, we've been talking. I just love positive reinforcement.
Okay, I will. She's lovely, and you know we've got to remember that I saw what she had her channel taken away for, and I saw the reason, and the reason was because she posted stuff that the person said stuff that was in contradiction to the World Health Organization on COVID. Well, the World Health Organization have been wrong several times this year on COVID.
Contradictory.
Several times. So if you're in contradiction, was it one of those contradiction times when they were wrong? Or are we going to find out that they were wrong in a few months on this contradiction? It's just, this is a doctor that she was getting this information from. But they'll let a million videos on YouTube as to flat Earth. They've got no problem, with flat earthers pushing their shit. They'll
but
put
they
all
won't
sorts
let
of
Dave
crap
Weiss
on
have
their
his
lies with
channel.
regards to other things. But for some reason, no, not with COVID, because that's I saw one video. People are they know that it's like they know not to trust the government. They're like me. If the government says something, the chances are, start from the premise that they're lying bastards and they're lying all the time, and you won't go far wrong. They know this. So now they're trying to I saw one video with some poor woman the other day who was trying to figure out what was in the AstraZeneca vaccine using Wikipedia because she didn't understand what some of the words meant. But she was certain at the end of it that it was going to change all our genome sequences and our DNA. She was absolutely certain. The reason is because Julian's in jail. Because how can we have a democratic society when we don't have a consensus on what the facts are anymore? Mm-hmm. Everybody's working from a different set of facts. Steve, you say you're going to meet the 3 different types of people at that rally, and they're going to have the pro-Trump people, and you're going to have and you're going to have people who are forced to vote. These 3 people, you watch, you're going to get together and you're going to talk, and you're going to realize none of you agree on stuff because none of you are starting from the same point as to what's true or not. And this is why we've got to push as much as possible to get this man released, because he gives us the receipts. He doesn't say, the power could go poof in Fargo. He didn't say that the Russians have hacked the election. He doesn't say any of that. He says, there's the document. Make your own mind up. And that's what we need to get back to, because this opinions, which is, I think I heard Denzel Washington call it that, other ones, opinions. That's basically what it is now. It's people's opinions based on false premises and false bullshit.
They've been calling
dangerous.
It's
because
been marketed.
People don't believe the media when they need to. For instance, in a pandemic or plandemic.
It's been marketed as infotainment for 20 fucking years, Gordon. Like, they're not even shy about it. No. How we've got to keep eyes on the station so that we can keep getting those advertiser dollars. How can we dress this story up so that people will pay attention until the next round of commercial breaks? And that's all that cable news is. That's all it is.
Tell the truth about Yemen if you're going to have an advert for Raytheon in between, aren't you? People will stop putting 2 and 2 together.
Yeah. I mean, it's also why we've never shown the real cost of war since fucking Vietnam.
Yeah, and that's why you see the same 6 stories over and over and over again when there's thousands of things they could be covering. They do what gets clicks and what gets ratings and what, is clickbaity and there's so much. There's a 24-hour news cycle. We have multiple 24-hour news channels, and we get the same 6 stories repeated all day long, over and over and over and over again. That's ridiculous. I mean, the fact that that's even a thing that happens and that people are not troubled by that, when there are so many other important stories that are just completely getting left by the wayside, that's crazy.
And it's only one angle of those 6 stories that's being covered. It's only one angle that's being presented. It's not even like, okay, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Why don't we see any stories about all of the civil liberties that have just sort of scooched out of our lives as a result of this? Why aren't we hearing about who has personally enriched themselves to the tune of tens of billions of dollars as a result of this? And it's because they're the people that are making the decisions that impact the rest of us on what this whole, rollout of a new normal is going to look like. Maybe maybe we should know more about those people and less about what their plans for us are, just for one 20-minute segment of the news.
Yeah, maybe these people that we should know stuff about that we know nothing about shouldn't know everything about us.
Maybe. Sounds crazy though. I mean, but maybe. I don't know. There's definitely people that we don't know anything about that we should know more about, like Vanessa Baratzer.
Guys, I don't know whether you can see this, but my dog's going to eat me soon.
Oh,
she hasn't been fed yet. She's like, you mentioned turkey sandwiches.
Oh boy.
But go feed the dog and get drunk so you come back on and sing.
I'm not going to come back on and sing.
Take a break.
Right. I'm not singing. I'm not.
I don't know. If we get a few drinks in you, we might be able to get that to happen.
There's not enough alcohol in the world, mister. There's not enough alcohol in the
But yeah, there's a Julian Assange quote that's very much about what Gordon just said. I'm going to butcher it, but something about the people in power want to make sure that they know everything about us and that we know nothing about them, and that's how they retain their power. And that's that's been really weird for me to watch, because I feel like, and again, I've said this a million times, but I feel like people are like slow walking into their own demise. They're like cheering it on and, standing by. Like I've said, they're destroying the First Amendment in broad daylight. Like, this is happening out loud. Like, I know that it doesn't get a lot of coverage, and I know that, but it's still happening out loud. They dragged the man out of the embassy in broad daylight. And the fact that nobody seems to care or be concerned or worried or troubled by what's happening is really a testament to how good they are at their propaganda game. They're very good, and that's what we're up against, and that's pretty terrifying, because they are very gifted at manipulating people. Definitely.
That's so true, Misty, because like there's one thing that I've been thinking about, and that's like the only thing that I feel like they are not prepared for is a unified, large, peaceful movement, like based off of civil liberties, based off of where it matters, based off of like a free Assange, based off of we want our due process back, we want these things back. And that's what I don't think they're prepared for, but I also think that's what is needed.
I don't know about the peaceful part, Kendra.
But I think violence, if it goes, I'm not advocating violence at all. No, I know.
You've got to cost them money, because they'll ignore the peaceful. Look how many people, the Iraq War, there were millions in London. They just ignored it. So unless you're causing them money, unless you're costing them in the pocket, they don't give a shit. Look at what happened last year. Look at how the government over here just lost it with Extinction Rebellion, because the amount of money that they were costing. They couldn't. The propaganda was off the chart. With people saying, "Oh, these the unwashed people and whatever, they're ruining the economy, etc., and they're domestic terrorists or whatever they were calling them." They went off because they were costing money. You've got to. I can't see how a peaceful protest. Have they ever worked? anywhere?
So what works?
Seven.
According to someone who lived it, and my spiritual advisor, Reverend Annie Chambers, according to her, what worked is you have to have an element that's a part of your movement that shows up prepared for violence.
Right.
So that while the focus is on a peaceful demonstration, the fact that at least it looks like it could turn violent.
So what
the
you're
threat
saying,
of
Steve,
violence
what you're saying
is as important to that.
So January the 4th, you're turning up with bits of wood and what have you, and you're going to erect a guillotine outside, yeah?
I'm
We'll
not
do it down
giving
at the
away
Old
all of
Bailey.
our protest secrets in the middle of a live stream, Gordon.
I know it sounds silly, and I'm not advocating violence at all. I'm not, but I just peaceful protests. I've always thought. I remember I covered one. It was. I've forgotten what it was for now. that's how much it's still. I've forgotten what no, it wasn't Pride. It was something. It was another People's Assembly. It was, and they were protesting for something. And I, for the life of me, have forgotten what it was. But anyway, they had the police in a car, in a truck, going down the road. I think it was a protest against capitalism. Shit, you not. And the police they were putting out the cones for the people, the protesters, to walk behind them, and obviously walking down the centre of London. They walked from, Piccadilly to Trafalgar Square, whatever it was. So it was a protest against capitalism and the ruining of the planet. Meanwhile, all the protesters are nipping into the Starbucks and the McDonald's and what have you on their way down there, and everybody was just looking at them walking past, shouting stuff like, no borders, no nation, stop deportations. Like they were crazy, and it didn't get anywhere. Is the point? It didn't change anybody's mind. It didn't change anything. But apart from the fact that these people had a nice day out and felt as if they were doing something, but they achieved nothing.
Well, there might be like maybe more strikes or things like that. I think my thing is like, at least with the reason I always go there with the nonviolence is because of the $750 billion military budget that we've been getting. Do you know what I mean? That's why I feel like for people, when it came down to it, chaos is not going to benefit us.
Well,
you said it there. Strike. There you go. If you want non-violent way of protesting, striking, I think, is an absolutely brilliant way. You've got to cost them. You've got to give them some sort of pain. And what beautiful place to give them pain, but in the place that they value the most, their pocket.
I think that may be the only thing they value.
And let's be honest, man, the only people that show up dressed for violence at a protest, at least in America, are the police.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true.
If you show up dressed for violence, you're going to be more comfortable being violent.
They don't show up dressed for violence. They show up dressed for war. Like
we talked
to Danny Scherzen, and he said, "Listen, the cops on the street have better equipment and gear than I had in the middle of a war,
and less strict rules of engagement."
Yes. So I mean, yeah, it's not like they show up, ready for violence. They show up ready for like complete annihilation and domination. It's crazy the way that our cops look in the streets. I mean, listen, that's why I don't necessarily blame people who are worried about, doing protests and stuff like that, because, people often, and I do it too. People often say, "Oh my God, look at the French. They're awesome. They're out there, really giving them shit." And that's great, but their cops won't just straight up, massacre.
Have you seen fucking pictures coming out of France? But
it's not
blood all over the fucking floor. They're getting it on.
I get it. But do you are you going to compare them to our cops? 'Cause I think that's a whole other ball game. That's a whole other ball game.
That's fair, but at the same time, let's at least match the French in creativity with our protests.
Sure. Absolutely. No, I do the same thing. I'm totally on board with that. But I'm just saying, like, I get when people are a little bit nervous about heading out into the streets of the United States to go toe to toe with our cops, because they will not hesitate.
I want to see a procession of front end loaders from Virginia hog farms with just buckets full of shit on the way up to Washington, D.C. to drop it off in front of Congress.
Yes, that would be amazing. Yeah, that would be great.
Let's make it happen, America.
Was that in France too, where they were like spraying like shit on some building or something?
That was their fucking parliament building. Just 2 weeks ago, they fucking mortared it shut. They built the goddamn wall blocking off the door.
We should be doing that to every single member of Congress's house.
Well, of course you should. Look at what you've got going on over there at the moment. Look at it. It seems to me that the United States government wants to give money to everybody apart from Americans. It's ridiculous. Why didn't? It's Ilhan Omar made a tweet afterwards. She made a tweet saying what we need a bill that we just the checks. That's it. And I'm like, a 4-year-old knew this 9 months ago. Well, so the very fact that you're loading everything into it means that you're doing that on purpose to push it down the road.
A $2,000 one-time payment is fucking offensive beyond measure. This should be at least $2,000 a month, retroactive to March, and it should continue until this thing is over. And that's like that's bare minimum. Like that's where that's bottom. Like that's my bottom. Like we should be starting way above that and then work our way down in the negotiations. And the fact that we have progressive politicians voting for this bullshit and then getting on Twitter to complain about Republicans, go fuck yourself.
I have a counter proposal. Let's realize that this thing kills 0.04% of the people that catch it and reopen the economy and let people go back to fucking work so they don't have to worry about being evicted and they don't have to worry about trading healthcare for fucking food and they don't have to worry about that shit. Like it can't be. Let's have the benevolent Joe Biden administration step in to hand out universal basic income to these people, because the amount of strings that are going to be attached to that are going to be fucking horrific. And for all of the people who are universal basic income proponents, come talk to me. We have lots to discuss. Lots to discuss.
Why do you want to kill everybody's grandma, Steve?
Fuck that grandma. She old. She had a life. It's a good life.
Yeah, she's no longer a contributing member of capitalism. So fuck that bitch. She can't give us anything. There's no capital with grandma. Come on, man.
Look, I love that argument though. Like why would you want to kill grandma? Why? I don't want to kill grandma. I would like it so that people could, be able to afford to take care of grandma in her twilight years.
Just sounds like you want to kill her to me.
I mean, it sounds unreasonable. I know. It does.
Collaborator.
I can be an unreasonable person. I can. I'm also highly suggestible. So you find me in the right mood and put the right stuff in front of me, and I'll find my way to your way of thinking.
Sending me free money is always a good thing, Steve, if you're highly suggestible. Sending me money.
Building Kendra a house for her Play-Doh Eric figure is a good idea.
I gotta make
Bitcoin.
I got to tell you, man, there's probably a better likelihood of me building Kendra a house than there is sending you money. I love you though, brother. I do. I love you.
I wonder that, Tareq and Gordon, I mean, how does it with the election, Assange, I mean, what does that look like from the UK? Do you guys, I mean, in general, is it just people think it's a total shit show and the U.S. is falling, or it's just kind of business as normal, or I mean.
The media over here portray it in a way that I think Tareq will agree with me. The media portray it as if everything's absolutely fine, don't they, Tareq? And there's going to be Joe Biden's going to take over, and there'll be normalcy come back. It's really quite amazing. And everything that Trump does is bad. That's the way they frame it. So that's the way people think.
But yeah, I mean, I do get a sense that, like, among the normal people, sorry to say, guys, that America's not been looking so great recently, but I think you guys know it's not.
Anybody over here that is watching, that I've spoke to, they've got the popcorn out. If it was a program, if it was a sitcom, like a soap opera, you'd switch it off because come on, this is. Nobody would let this happen in real life. This is ridiculous, but it's happening, and I've just got to look at it all, and you see, you see how the politicians as well just swivel and pivot, and it's like how like a flock of birds in the one goes one way and then they all go. You see that happen almost in real time sometimes, especially when you've got you see Twitter and you see people like that empty wheel or whatever it is, and those bloody wonks from the Hamilton 68 dashboard, they'll say something, then all of a sudden all of the Democratic Party they're all on the same page, they're all saying exactly the same thing. It's incredible the way. I mean, I've been watching this thing with the Medicare, the force to vote, and by the way, just give him sainthood now, Jimmy Dore. But I've been watching the way it's evolving, and the way AOC will talk to everybody but Jimmy Dore about it, and then when it turns out that it was shit, that $600 it was shit. Next thing you know, Trump's vetoed it, and she's there on Twitter. Let's make it happen. As if it's their idea to give $2,000 checks. It's like they are actors. These people are.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a tweet the other day, and I know, Mister, you've said something very similar in the past, and you pulled me up on it. I swear I wasn't copying you at all. If you took all of the senators out, the 100 senators and the 425 Congress people, and you literally walked down the street and got random people and put them in that position, they would do a much better job of representing the people, and they would do it for half the price. These people need to be. I honestly, I know it's a turn of speech. I don't mean it literally, but they need to be lined up against a wall and shot, or at least threatened. Because it's criminal what they're doing. Meanwhile, Julian's in our Guantanamo Bay for proving they're all criminals. It's
and what's really
Steve says, we're in a cartoon.
What's really frustrating to me is watching these people who support the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and, the Ilhan Omars and stuff. They have turned into everything they ever claimed to hate. They are now using Bernie bro rhetoric against Jimmy Dore. Nomiki Konst is like, oh, well, he just bought a really fancy house. And they're like, oh, well, he
owns 3 coats.
Right. Yes, I tweeted it out. I know for a fact he has at least 2 hats because I have pictures to prove it. But Nomiki Konst is saying that his audience is all young white men. That's the same shit they said against Bernie Sanders. The exact same line of attack they used against Bernie Sanders. And you now have supposed Bernie supporters and progressives using that same line of attack against somebody who's trying to get a vote on healthcare in the middle of a pandemic. That's disgusting. That is the most disgusting thing.
Let's be honest, though. This is also why campus Marxists are the most easily kickable people on the fucking planet.
Yeah. I mean, that whole crew of the other day I called them, somebody said that they were like a whole crew of Karens. And I said, it's worse than that. They're a whole crew of Nancys, as in Nancy Pelosi. They're these establishment hangers on who, do this impressive cosplay of being progressive. Some of them do. Nomiki Konst has never been progressive to me at all. But, you know, it's like, you know, you have these progressive politicians who ran on all of these things now, you know, doing everything they can to weasel their way out of doing even the bare minimum to fight for those things. And you still have people defending them. And I don't know what level brainworms you need to have in order to do that, but it doesn't give me much hope for the future at all.
One of the reasons why I spend so much time watching American politics is just because it's so much more ridiculous than ours. I mean, ours is just bad enough. I mean, what's happened down there for the last 3-4 years has just been, I mean, you know, historians are going to look back as the 4-year period where the United Kingdom just lost its shit and just, but it's been. Sorry, Steve, go on.
The last 4 years of UK politics have mirrored American politics. That's why it looks so freaking ridiculous, because it's our shit.
Yeah, but everything that happened to us, like everything, America made it bigger and much, much worse. And it's like everything that happened like last year with the election, what have you, it's happened in America on just a much grander scale. Like, you know, your shopping centers, or as I like to call them, small towns. Everything's bigger. And it's, you know, I remember putting this in my book. I remember 2016. I remember there was a story over here, and this was the top story. Tareq will agree with me here, and it was a scandal because our prime minister at the time, Theresa May, had said that the naughtiest thing that ever she did was run through a farmer's fields of wheat. At the same time, in the same week, Stormy Daniels was talking about how the president of the United States has smacked her on the arse with a copy of Woman's Weekly or whatever it was. That's what we're up against. That's with, you know, it's the United Kingdom
had to
stayed
step up your crazy in order to merely compete. Is what you're saying.
It's just insane watching. It's insane. I don't know how it's got to this stage. I don't know how. I don't know how the people have let it get to this stage. That's the truth. I think it's because. Do you think it's because they're misinformed and they don't know what's going on, Steve? By any chance?
I think people are so bombarded by conflicting narratives 24 hours a day that it is almost inescapable for someone who hasn't made the conscious decision to like go and figure out what the real story is for themselves. Yeah. That manufactured confusion that people are subjected to every second of every day, coupled with, at least in our case, an almost 70-year-long war on education, the deliberate dumbing down and the deliberate constant confusion have created a populace that just, they don't fucking know anymore. They don't know anymore. They just don't. They just want to be told how to feel so they can move on and get to the next overwhelming task in front of them.
Well, they've also done a very good job of pigeonholing people into teams. And so you have your team and you support that team no matter what. And it doesn't matter what they say, what they do. That's your team. They can do no wrong. The other side is bad. And so people have this mentality where they can't examine anything outside of their team. And you see it right now happening with like a Jimmy Dore. People just don't like Jimmy Dore, so everything he says is bad. And that's ridiculous. People you don't like will say and do good things, and that is okay. And it's okay to say, hey, I really dislike that guy, but he just said something smart that I agree with. It's like Tucker Carlson is a giant piece of shit, but when he has somebody on to talk about, ending wars or freeing Julian Assange, that's a good thing. And that's okay to say that that's a good thing. Tucker Carlson can be a piece of shit and do something or say something good. And so, you have these people running around who act like, it's like Tulsi Gabbard. Oh, well, Tulsi Gabbard, I hate Tulsi Gabbard. So, here she introduced these bills that would free Assange, or that would pardon Assange, pardon Snowden, and reform the Espionage Act. Well, that can't be good because it came from Tulsi Gabbard. That's ridiculous. That's infantile. Like, you need to grow up and recognize that there are, I don't agree with anybody 100% of the time, ever. So, they're going to. What's that?
Neither do I.
I know. It's nobody.
How can you?
I
It's
have
not-
a suggestion for everybody. It's one of my absolute favorite books, and I do think that it really goes into this problem, and it's called The Abolition of Man by C.S. Lewis. And what he does is he starts just with a kind of deformity in how our language is taught to us and how people just getting rid of the definition of words. And he goes, it's a short book, but it's really, I would recommend it to everybody on here, because I'd also like to hear what your opinions are on it. But the end of it is basically this: we've created this society of men without chests. And I do see that as a big issue, this cowardice. Do you know what I mean? Or this weird thing of not, like Misty said, if you don't trust your own mind, or you think and that's another term I learned called bulverism, where it's if I'm smoking a cigarette and I say that smoking kills, I am still telling the truth, and you have to be able to find those truths in there. But that's a good book recommendation for everyone here, The Abolition of Man, and see what you think of it.
Look at Kendra assigning homework.
So we've got about 8 minutes before Sleepy Josh is killing the stream and getting out of here. We should probably start the wind down, although I don't want to. This has been rather enjoyable.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I got a meeting.
Way to go, Sleepy.
Fucking Josh.
Let's go.
I
Okay,
know.
bud.
I know.
Well, I am so hungry. I've got to eat.
I'm hungry
Oh, so's your
too.
dog.
I get it.
So's your dog, yeah.
Mop up the alcohol from yesterday.
Fun times.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, before the missus eats all the turkey.
Uh,
She will.
well, you want to go ahead and start the round of closeouts here, Gordon? So you can feed
I
your
will do.
poor, starving, neglected dog.
Yeah, we'll do. So, yeah, 9 days. Is it 9 days from now?
9
Before-
days.
Yeah, 9 days. Be there. Where were you going to be, Steve? Is it Washington?
Yeah, we're going to be in front of the Department of Justice building on the 4th. We're going to be at the British Embassy the day before on the 3rd.
Okay, I'll be there with Tareq in the vicinity, I suppose, of the Old Bailey down there. And at the time, yeah, be there. This is really important. It's free speech, everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're left, right, centre, whatever, libertarian, authoritarian, doesn't matter. We all are going to face the repercussions of whatever this verdict is. We will all feel it in one way or another. We're going to go there for a protest, expecting a protest and hoping for a party. Join us.
Do you want to tell, Gordon, do you want to tell everybody where they can find your stuff, like your
Yeah,
website?
you can find me. Yeah, Jordan. Yeah, you'll find me. Don't worry. There's no, honestly, it's not like my name's John Smith. You know,
Right.
you'll find me. Yeah, here's the website,
Fair enough.
book, shit. Thanks, guys.
GordonDimmack.com, everybody.
Oh boy.
Tareq, mate, thank you so much for coming on again today. I enjoy and appreciate your insights and your measured diplomacy.
Yeah. Family, yes, it's awesome that you guys do this all the time, and kind of to what you were saying about at the beginning of the show is like a big shout. I think needs to go out to the activists that I think even today they were out there in Piccadilly again, and thanks to all of you guys for continuing to do this.
They're awesome. They really are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming on. I mean, and all of your work to free Assange, it's really helpful to us too. And Tareq, I just have to say, I know it's happened a while ago, but it means a lot to me that you left Newsweek personally. So
Likewise.
thank you for doing that. I'm sure it hasn't been easy, but it means a lot. So I'm Kendra, and you can find Denver Free Assange at DNV Free JA. You can follow us there. We also have, Denver has a Facebook page as well that is just Denver Free Assange. And then personally, me on Twitter at edebs13. And I want to say thank you to our guests again, and to my co-hosts, and to our chat, which is the best, and Sleepy Josh, of course.
Thanks, Josh.
And I'm Misty Winston.
problem.
You can find me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. I also have another show called Facts on the Ground with my friend Jesse Zerwell. We're going to be interviewing Morgan Archikina tomorrow about
Yay.
Tulsi's sports bill, the transgender sports bill. So I'm interested to dive into that with her and kind of discuss the implications of that and all of those things. Hasn't really gotten a ton of measured coverage. So I'm excited to do that.
You're transphobe.
I know, right? It's amazing. I support Tulsi's bills to, pardon Assange and Snowden. So that means I support everything that she does and everything that she said. It's ridiculous. Anyways, so yeah, that's where you can find me. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to my co-hosts. Thanks to our chat. Thanks to everybody who donated to the GoFundMe to make DC possible. You guys are amazing. If you guys can make it to DC, please do. If you can't, be like a one-person protest in your own town. Like go stand on a street corner. That sounds bad, but stand on a street corner with a sign, or go to your Capitol building in your state, or whatever you can do. Everybody can do something. So find something that you can do to make a difference and do it. Get on Twitter and start harassing Donald Trump and his minions, and appeal to his sense of petty, his ego. I've been going at him, asking if he wants to be known as the president who destroyed the First Amendment. So just whatever you can do to catch his eye or the people around him is always a good thing. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, guys.
My name's Steve Boykin, and I have a show called Slow News Day that you should be watching on Rockfin, because that's where I'm going to be after YouTube arbitrarily removes my channel. And by the way, I don't know if I've done this on air before, but big thanks to Tareq Haddad for getting the door open to Rockfin and getting me on that platform. Thank you, man. I really do. I appreciate that. Tomorrow, we're going to be sitting down with Tedros Fikramariam, and that is going to be one hell of a conversation. I can't wait for that. It's going to be fascinating. Huge things are happening in the world of Slow News Day, so make sure that you are around for all of that. Big shout out to my Better Than Your co-host, Glory Jones, on that show. And Sleepy Josh for holding it down as he always does. Big thanks to Tareq Haddad and Gordon Dimmack for joining us today. To my co-hosts on the Vigil here, love you guys. To everybody in the chat who's watching us, you guys are fucking fantastic, and we love the hell out of you. Thanks again to everyone who helped make DC possible. We're going to raise hell for you. More importantly than that, we need you there. So if you're anywhere near the Washington, D.C. area and you can get down to the city first week of January, there are going to be people in the streets making noise, and you should join them in the streets making noise. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll see you soon. Good luck to us all. Thanks, Sleepy Josh.
No problem.
Thanks, everyone.